database exists only on backend. It doesn't exist on front end side. Caching means just CDN or the Redis cache. Not sure how the applications like WhatsApp, web.whatsapp.com or WhatsApp Teams, or you can say the Teams chat, preload the messages that we have already communicated. Not sure how to improve the performance of a web application using the database and caching technique. If any of these questions are similar and you are thinking about that, this video is for you. Please watch this video till the end, because me and Akshay have basically came together in order to share our experiences, how we have used database and caching in our real world project, working at Microsoft, Uber, Flipkart, Paytm, and many such companies. So before you move on, don't forget to like, share and subscribe and watch this video till the end. There are so many interesting things we have discussed. People in computer science, in networking, one thing which we underestimate most of the time is distributed computing. Like one way is you have everything at one place and that make a source of truth for all the data, all the processing and whatnot. Sometimes you can do a distributed like computation where you have your own data for some time, where if you wanted to operate on that, you access locally on your browser. Why do you want it to come to a server for each and every small activity that you wanted to do? Probably that can be optimized with your local set of the data. Now that can be in multiple ways. It can be, as we talked about, it can be the data which is coming and basically cached at your HTTP level. It can be after next level where you have a API caching, basically, where inside that, once you get the API responses, you are caching and have using multiple network policies, like next time someone looking for, I will look for cache, or I will do cache and network. I will do many crazy stuff. Now, next level is basically you have service workers also, right? Most of the people don't know that you can do caching using service worker to the next level. So there are many such examples. We will be talking about our industry experience probably related to that. But then comes to the actual storage that we have. Any kind of storage, like you have local storage, session storage, you have cookies, you have IndexedDB. Eventually, like we can always get into all of these details, which eventually in our upcoming episode we are going to talk. But Akshay, one thing wanted to touch upon out of these roadmap. What do you think? What are something which are very critical people should know and understand via HUD basically?
What I feel is that, first of all, you should understand the importance that whenever you are thinking about data in your application, it is the important thing. And using this storage or data, right, you can improve the experience of user a lot. Right? You can increase the user experience so drastically, as you were saying that, okay, whether you actually want to make a network call or you just want to fetch data locally and then make a API call later on, then update it, right? You can implement so many things which will improve your user experience, and user experience is something which should be definitely there in your hearts when you are talking about right, building front end, right? Front end is something which the user sees. If it is appealing, if it is loading fast, it is the best you can do, right? Do you want to add something to this, Chirag?
One thing, as you rightly mentioned, experience is something which is very important. Like it hardly matters where my data is. Either you keep the data local, you keep the data to the nearby system, or you keep the data in a Paris or a London. I don't care. It matters when I come to the website, when I try to do some activity, how fast it is. Now it's the responsibility of you as an engineer to ensure what kind of data, where it can be best suited, so that the overall experience is much better. It can be not just in terms of only the data, it can be any asset also. Example, the image that you loaded first time, the next time, why do you want it to even go to the server and say that, boss, again give me a 5 MB image that you gave previously, right?
Exactly.
You can use some caching over there, right? There can be anything. JavaScript, we often do it, right? Once you get it, any React version or whatnot, it is not going to change on millisecond or a day or whatnot, right?
Exactly.
Eventually, you want to keep that version as it is, because these libraries, static versions, not going to change. Can we cache it? Your images, right? Your fonts, can we cache it? Where to cache it comes to the next level. So I think if people start thinking in terms of providing the right set of experience to the user, then the right set of thought process, thinking about databases, thinking about caching, where to cache, where to put the information, will make things more you can say more experience wise better, and obviously more reliable also. What do you say, Akshay?
Yes, you are absolutely right. And I have numerous of examples where websites use local storage, session storage, cookies. It also depends on what kind of data are you storing, right? And according
Yeah.
to that, you choose where to keep that, right? There are, if the data is huge, if the data is very potentially, like, you need to keep it very secure, safe, then you definitely would want to keep into your database, right? And then you bring it every time the user needs it. But if something is not that critical, you can keep it in local storage, right? It will just increase the user experience, right? If Moving on to, right, taking some examples from what I have seen is, I have heavily seen, Chirag would elaborate it more, but I have heavily seen Flipkart using local storage, right? I remember Flipkart used to dump the whole header of your website onto the local storage, because see, headers do not change often, right? How many times have you
Yeah.
changed? Have you seen that Flipkart's header is changed? Not really, right? It does not update very often. So what they do is, they just keep, once you request flipkart.com, they just dump, they used to dump, I don't know now if they're doing it or not, but earlier they used to dump that header into the local storage. And as soon as the next time I load Flipkart, it used to, like, within millisecond, it used to
Blink of eye.
blink of eye, not even blink of eye, it used to load in a jiffy, right? And then as soon as I can just think, okay, I see that header, and suddenly the next of the images and everything loads, right? So it depends what you keep where. We can use session for storing some temporary data, we can use local storage, and it makes to a lot of interview questions also, because these things are very critical to know the difference between all of them. Would like to add something, Chirag?
Yeah, definitely. So starting from like my previous career with
Uh-huh.
a mortgage kind of
Mm-hmm.
company, where I have used this service worker in order to cache lot of asset. Although you have CDNs, you can
Yes.
do caching,
Yes.
do a
Yes.
lot of
Yes.
interesting thing. Service worker plays a very important role, which people underestimate, right? And which if you leverage in the like right fashion, it takes you the next level. I will tell you example.
Yes.
When I was actually leveraging that, I actually analyzed how Flipkart is doing, because Flipkart does very crazy stuff
Yes.
on their homepage.
Exactly.
Then I analyzed they used to cache using servers their API request also. I was like,
Yes. Yes.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
so they don't have that data level, they have service level caching. I have requested some maybe categories. These categories are not going to change.
Yes.
And I also wanted to ensure when I reload, it's not my in memory, which is again your Redux state again going to pull the data. It's there in your somewhere in between sitting in the network layer, it
Oh,
caches.
nice.
So even those kind of call you don't have to basically go and get. And you
That's great.
cannot make those call cache for everyone. Reason being, the categories that you get, categories other person get may be different, right? Depending on multiple scenarios, your pin code, and a lot of other factor basically can impact. Taking the, you can say, caching to that level makes our application like Flipkart, where you see, yes, I'm using a some cool application, and you're proud of that. We have done something on in India, basically building that great experience website. One
And
thing I wanted to also add, yeah,
yes, yes. You can continue, Chirag. Yes, yes. What else?
yeah, I think another example was Flipkart ads, like where we leveraged the, you can say, multiple experience to the next level. Example, say suppose you have a listing page. In listing page, generally we have partial information. Now you wanted to go to main detail page. In detail page, you have more kind of information. What we used to do, we used to use multiple, you can say, fetch policies, or you can say different network policies in order to
Mm-hmm.
optimize to the next level. Whatever information you have, show that. Next, behind the scene, you make a network call, get the data, put it into the cache. Now, next time when someone is actually opening the same detail page, it knows I have already have the data which is merged or normalized data which is coming from multiple sources. My job is done. Like ensuring that your repeated visit becomes a charm, right? A next level.
You are absolutely right. And first of all, you need to identify what to store where. Right. In my experience, Chirag, right, what we did was, I remember, right. See, if things are not that critical, you use local storage, right? We heavily used to use local storage. So suppose,
Yeah.
in Uber and Paytm, we had, suppose, list of countries. We don't want to make an API call always to get the list of countries. Keep it, dump it over there, and then next time you populate it very soon. Suppose if we want to store something like the user is using light mode or dark mode, right? Just keep it in the browser of the user, right? It's not something which I want to keep it in my database, right? It's a call of a team, right? Or a senior engineer that whether should we keep it
Right.
in database or not. But we did not keep it, right? Because we thought that, okay, now you'll have to also see the trade-offs, right? Suppose if you keep something on local storage, then suppose if the user changes the browser and visits your website, then they might see a default theme, not the light or dark which they have selected. But it's okay, right? I mean, it's not something which is burning, right? Burning
It has
issues.
pros and cons. I
Uh-huh.
think I have a very good example for
Yes.
that,
Uh-huh.
Akshay. So many of these have different profiling. Consider example, you
Yes.
have a company account.
Yeah.
Now there are companies who have different candidates or different employee having their own profile.
Yes.
Example, in Netflix, multiple people using it. You may be
Uh-huh.
having your own profile. But most of the time, there are some credentials which are shared by different representative and they keep on contributing to the same account.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
in that case, consider if I start persisting my, you can say personalized data into the database, whatever I customize, it is going to impact all the other people.
Everyone.
But on
Exactly.
the other case, if it is only on the local,
Browser.
I can customize according to myself, other one can customize to their self and their own experiences.
It
So even
depends on use case. Depends on use case.
Depend on use case.
How you want the feature to be. Depends on how you see the trade-offs. Lot of things
Exactly.
you can do over there in that space.
In short, basically we have to understand one important thing, right? So there are different kind of databases or on the client web storage we understand, which is local storage, cookie session storage and whatnot.
IndexedDB.
There are something which is only dedicated to the browser, like no one else basically can get unless you pull that data from the JavaScript and share with someone else, whatnot. There's some such storage which is by default being shared across the client and the server, so that there's no what data. It can be anything. It can be your authorization token. So either you're authorized or not is taken care by the server. You get something from the client, maybe some user related information you wanted to keep on having at both the parties, you put in the cookies and whatnot, right? Some more sensitive information which says no, this is okay when the client and server interact and they have this. I wanted to ensure that this resides only for certain duration, like your bank website. Why can't we forget? Have you tried opening a duplicate tab on your bank website? Did it ever work for
will
anyone?
never work.
No. If it did not work, then you have to think about, oh, there was some exchange which was happening. What happened in the new
It does
tab?
not even work.
Right?
It does not even work for a single tab. You refresh the page and it's gone.
You refresh the page, gone, right? And very critical things, like they have their invalidation timings and a lot of evict related. Like if you are inactive for even like 2 minutes, you'll get your session timeout because you are not active. Screwed up, man. I was just finding out where is my account number because I don't remember, and you logged me out, right, in the mid of a form.
Lot of time it
So
happened
many
that
such
I
things.
have gone to fetch my credit card from my wallet and then meanwhile I came back, it's lost. So it's all depending upon the use case, how much amount of security you want to give. But a lot of these storage comes with a lot of security also, because see, these storages are directly dependent on data, and when there is talk about data, then security comes into picture. So all this is related. In upcoming videos we would dive deep into all these, like individually, what is local storage, what is session storage, and right, what is cookies, why to use it, when to use it, where should you keep it, right? So all these things we will cover in detail in coming videos. But can we, Chirag,
Yeah.
right, talk about a little bit about what should a fresher and a senior developer should know about these storages and caching?
One thing which I will definitely say, if you're a fresher, you may not be knowing about maybe HTTP cache or the API caching
exactly.
strategies, because those are not visible
Maybe also
directly, right?
about
Those are
server
there.
service workers and all
Service
might not
worker.
use it very heavily.
Service worker is still okay, right? Because even for service worker, these things, the biggest problem is you don't have those kind of visualization in your dev tool,
Exactly.
like where you can guarantee say that, oh, this is cache, this is not cache, what will happen. You don't have that visuality. where you have visual things. I will say you must know that, because those are very easy one, like local storage, session storage, cookies, and at least a bit of IndexedDB. If you are a fresher, you may not be knowing all the APIs, what cool things can be done, but at least knowing that it exists and it can be alternative of any of these when your application grows is something which is important, right? So I think these are some fundamental, and one thing I will suggest, storage is one part, but as a fresher or a senior, you should know how do you normalize your data, which is very, very important.
Exactly.
Most of the time people don't know how do I keep the data, like in which format I should massage my data in order to keep. Not just this, you may be seen, Akshay, when you were creating the React, Namaste React, basically what to keep in the Redux state and how to keep in the Redux state even in your local state, right, is something which is very important. If you don't decide it right, then unnecessary lot of re-rendering will happen, lot of unnecessary component will be re-triggered that I have updated. So these choices are something which defines that are you doing the justice.
And
so normalization is something which you should understand.
And it's not just in this local storage or session storage. It's a programming thing, I guess, right? It's a programmer's job to know what data to keep where, in what format, in what nested hierarchy, or at flat level, or at what level. It's your job to see that. It is basically, if I have to say it in a micro level, it's like creating your database schema, right? How do you create a schema which is there on your local storage or somewhere, right? Wherever you keep. It all depends on your application. As we go ahead in the videos, we will talk about examples and code examples also, where we'll take examples and show you how you do it in local storage and all that other stuff, right? How do you keep your JWT tokens and cookies? How do you invalidate it? How do you store it, right? All that stuff, we will talk about that. Talking from a fresher's point of view, you should definitely know local storage. You cannot skip local storage, session storage, cookies. What are the difference between them? Very highly asked in interviews also. If moving towards the interview point of view, very, very, very important question. Never miss it, right? It's a most favorite question in interviews of interviewers.
Yep.
And and then you can also talk about how much you can store in cookies, how much you can store in local storage, how much you can store in session, and and it also depends on browsers and your devices. A lot of browsers have more capacity than others. A lot of devices in your phone, you have lesser memory than others. So lots of criticalities and technicalities there, right? Maybe if you can add something more, Chirag, from your experience, maybe from your industry, right?
Yes, definitely. I remember in one of the interview, I was asked, okay, you get, most of the people use this either JWT or OAuth kind of thing. They use maybe Firebase, they get a token, and generally it is asked where you are going to keep that.
Local storage.
So first thing that
Local
comes, let's
storage.
put in the local storage. Next time in the API, I will add that into with credentials. Basically, I will pass that token,
Bad
right?
thing.
That is, I think many of people have done
Bad
that,
thing.
right? So that, which is very bad thing, right? And if you don't know, please try to analyze these kind of thing, which is very important.
Yes.
Other kind of thing is, which I have faced this problem in one of the company, I remember it well, where the cookie which I set basically was being read by third-party extension that I was having.
Yes.
And we never realized, boss, this could be a so much dent basically that we are creating, because external extensions basically that we were having was able to steal some information which we never wanted.
I think
having
I think, Chirag, we can make a separate topic or separate video on how extensions steal your data. I am very much conscious if I am installing an extension, and extension can access so many things in your browser that you feel it's just an extension, you can just add it. But dude, right, you are giving access to so many things when you're installing an extension. That means that extension can run some JavaScript in your website. Now, if you can run JavaScript on your page, then think about what else you can do. Right? You continue, Chirag. You were saying something.
People who blindly install the extension, please see the permissions. Because I remember I have recently created a DevTool utility extension basically in Microsoft in my project for the developers who can do. So I have already I have done a lot of activity on the cross communication between the main thread to the, you can say, content snippet thread. So there are things. So you should be taking it very seriously and saying that take all the permission. or give all the permission. These two statements are very harmful, right? Either give or take. Both, all is very. Now, other thing which I think is talking about IndexedDB in databases are like interviews are very, very important. Like I remember one of the interview where basically interviewer opened the application which was Teams basically and said, tell me, you see this experience, you have older data basically and all of these basically things are happening, help me how these things are managed. Like there are definitely something, because when you reload you see the previous chats and everything there. Now when you think from a normal user perspective, oh, local storage, right? Then you think about scale of the data. Then you think seriously local storage, like you have to double think, can it be local storage? Now you are offline also, you're doing some query. How can I support that? Doing a query on a local storage in a stringified version, horrible. So thinking from what interviewer is asking and what scale and what use case our interviewer is asking is very important. Maybe as you told Akshay, like dark and light mode, and then you say, no, I will have IndexedDB to set up in order to do the query, and person will like, dude, you have just a toggle on and off. Why you wanted to do all this mess? So there is no silver over engineering. There is no silver bullet. Understand the problem statement well and then come up with a solution. Don't blindly say that I wanted to do that, right? Which is not going to help.
You're absolutely right, Chirag, right? I mean, you can do a lot of stuff, but when to do what? This is a job of a senior engineer. If you are a senior engineer, you should be able to take those decisions. If you are a junior engineer still, then you should know what these topics are, when to use what. But as a senior engineer, you should definitely know that if given a use case, right? Maybe we can cover that in coming videos also. If suppose you are given a use case, right? Suppose if you want to build something, then where should you keep things and in what format can be a very good question for interviews. And you should definitely know. It's your job as a senior engineer to decide all this so that your experience of the user becomes faster. And most of the times, what I feel in a broader perspective, everything that we do in local storage, session storage, these things are done to enhance the user experience in some fashion, to load your website fast, to maybe improve your user experience, right? Reduce the latency, give offline support, or like these things are good over there, right? So that you make less number of network calls, you can cache things up. Right? It's all about performance, security, and security definitely comes when there is data, right? Wherever it is data, there is security, and this whole database and caching is relating to data. So security is again a bigger picture. Anything else? Chirag, can you tell more interview questions that interviewers focus or
one of the popular one. I remember my interview with Flipkart, and I was given a dashboard basically where you have multiple visit and whatnot.
Yes.
Now I was told you decide what is the data in format you are going to store, and the expectation was how do you normalize this data so that there are multiple cool features that can be built on top of it with the least complexity. Like it should be of one kind of thing basically if that can be done. So now expectation was one, you have the, like I give you a structure, you design the page perfectly fine. That seems very easy. You have nested hierarchy, you have nth hierarchy, it doesn't matter because you can achieve it. Now the question becomes tricky when I say I can drag and drop component from one place to the other place. Now you think, oh, from that depth I have to bring it out to some other depth, to some other hierarchy.
You don't want to do that computation again and again.
You don't want to do computation, and suddenly you don't want it to keep the data at a multiple places, because if you move the one data, what will happen to the other data which is still residing at some older place, right? How do you normalize this? This comes very important because I remember one of another discussion which happened with a very senior person. What that was related to normalization of API cache. Example, in one single API call, I'm asking for give me the data about the user, and there are data related to the city inside that in a nested format. Now, how do you wanted to keep that data into your cache? Because that makes impact. What if I have 20 users and having the same city inside as an information? I went and changed the city information. Are you expecting me to go to those 20 users and modify those city information into that? I'm not talking about it, same funda uses in the database, in the backend, in the client also. When you have those normalization in your Redux state, local storage, or IndexedDB, or API cache layer, anywhere. That normalization is something which is very important. You have to understand. The other thing,
we would
one
we
thing which
would
I
we
can,
would love, Chirag, if you would cover this in more detail, right? I'm really excited. I think most of the viewers are also very excited to learn all this from you.
definitely, we're going to drill down, guys. Be excited, be crazy about what is going to be coming
Crazy
next.
stuff.
One last thing which I wanted to say, also understanding the header policies, HTTP headers, basically using that you can cache. I remember one of the interviews screwing up. Like,
Acha.
you sometimes think you are smart, and on the other side, interviewer is more smarter than that, right? And that happened in one of the case where someone asked me what you are going to use. I said, I know I'm very smart. I use cache policy, cache control in order to do the caching basically of the header. And he said, what if I have e tag and cache control? I said, okay, now interesting. Then he said, if you have last modified e tag and cache control, then what is going to, and I was like, boss, give up. Like, you might have learned so many things, but when you don't experiment or you have experienced these things, it's just a bookish knowledge, which I feel. And I want you, everyone, to feel that basically when we are going through the upcoming videos.
Definitely, if you are a senior engineer, then you should see, one is like superficial knowledge that okay, you know what is local storage, what is session storage, what is cookies, but you'll have to go one level deep and understand that what if this, what if that, right? So these are the questions which the interviewers can grill you in all of these concepts. Prepare them. Uh, Prepare, right? If you have ever used IndexedDB, then there can be a lot of questions related to IndexedDB, why to use it, when to use it. Tell me some examples where you have used it, or tell me some examples where you might use it, pros and cons of all of them.
Yep.
Right? So these are the famous interview questions. Again, a lot of interview questions come from cookies, because cookies are a important part, right? And when it comes from two cookies, then security also comes, right? So
Yep.
so
One interesting question I can relate with,
yes,
Akshay.
yes,
One
Chirag.
experience, probably. One last thing,
Mhm.
probably. So I remember in one of the company I was in mowing it, and all of a sudden we saw the authentication of almost 90%, like almost 90% people started failing.
Okay.
And we were like, we did not roll out anything. And we were amazed, like, what the hell happened? There is no release happened in the last week.
Browser
All
update.
of a sudden, how does a spike happen? No, there was no. This is interesting. There was some update, but not the browser.
Okay.
That was an update that happened in the ad blocker extension, which almost every people have.
Oh.
And that was adding a cookie of a huge size.
Oh God.
And the cookie size limit that we were having in our configuration was limited, and it was not even taking the cookie, reading the cookie, because of the size limit that we were adding at a server, and all the authentication of our user were failing. And we were like, boss, tell us the way basically how we can get rid of that, right? So one is you can fix it. There is still the problem. What will happen to your existing users who has that cookie setup? You can't ask everyone, go log out, right? Go clean up. Something has to be done. So what can be done? We will be again talking in this module.
Exactly. This is a very good example, right? And if you're a senior engineer, then these things come into your head. Okay, we did not release anything, or if we released, it was nothing, something which could impact this authentication or site. So if it broke, then there could be that you should be able to reason that what can be scenario. Either the browser updated, right? So browser updated, or as Chirag said, right?
Yep.
It was for 90% of the users. They might be having some extension or something, right? Something very specific to a large number of users that has in common, right? So all those people would be using something, and it happens a lot with a lot of libraries also, right? So I remember we used React router, right? I think, and then there was a version upgrade. React router, oh my god, right? React router, whenever they do a version upgrade, there is like everything breaks, right?
New learning.
Everything. And we were a good story I'll tell you right now when we are talking, and I got it in my head. Then, so what happened was we were using monorepos. So in monorepos, we have a single node modules which is shared by a lot of repositories. And suddenly someone did a browser, someone did a update on the library that we were using, and that was React router, and suddenly everything broke for everybody. Then we had to roll the version down, and then we did it like it was a chaos, right? So sometimes these things happen because of not your code but somebody else's code. But if you have knowledge and understanding of these things, you will be able to debug faster, and you will be able to come up with a very better mitigation plan, right? How can you plan to improve this or enhance your system so that you can accommodate these changes? And trust me, if you're a front-end engineer, there are so many external things that can break your app that you can't even think of, right? It's not just your code which can be wrong. There can be so many external factors, right, that can break your
Toughest job of a front-end developer.
toughest job. Yep.
Like, two toughest job, most of the things are
Async, cross-browser
identifying what is happening from where is
cross-browser
happening, cross-browser
compatibility.
compatibility.
And the most important thing, JavaScript.
JavaScript.
Anything can be
Like,
undefined.
the more you learn JavaScript, the more you learn JavaScript, the more you realize I don't know JavaScript.
I don't know JavaScript. Exactly. And it's been so many years we are coding in JavaScript, and still I encounter so many things which open my eyes and bring me back to the roots that, okay, Akshay, you still have to learn a lot, right? Great thing.
Yeah.
When we prepare content for these videos, we already see that, okay, there are so many things which I did not know, and then we learn and then we add on to things. So stay tuned, be excited for upcoming videos, and there is a lot of amazing things that we are going to cover.
We have recently launched the Namaste Frontend System Design course, which covers the every aspect of system design, from the fundamental to the advanced, the LLD and HLD. This video was just an introductory video. If you're interested, please go and check out the course description in the description link given below. So don't forget to like, subscribe and share with your friend, and see you in the upcoming awesome video.